Czechoslovakia was founded on October 28, 1918, with the substantial help of Czechs in Canada and the United States. Since the beginning, the new country has been impressing the world. Under the leadership of President Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, a highly respected champion of humanism, it has become the strongest democracy in Central Europe and one of the 10 most developed countries in the world. We join President Masaryk during his visit in Zlín, the seat of the Bata Shoe Company. The globally operating firm is a source of pride for the nation. As a result of its pioneer activities around the world, Bata means shoe in some languages. The country's success is well-deserved. Almost 150,000 of its men fought bravely alongside the Allies for freedom and democracy in World War I. The founding president of Czechoslovakia, Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, passes away. The nation mourns the loss of the beloved leader. This is also true for Czechs in Canada. It seems like the whole nation gathered in the streets of Prague on the day of the funeral to pay tribute. The country has been facing a growing threat from Nazi Germany. President Masaryk's friend and successor in the presidential office, Edvard Beneš, has found himself in an increasingly difficult situation. The eyes of the world are on Czechoslovakia. May the passing of the great humanist not mark an end of a happy era for Czechoslovakia and the world. Of September 30th, 1938, forces Czechoslovakia to cede a significant part of its territory to Nazi Germany. German Chancellor Adolf Hitler promises that this is his last territorial demand in Europe. The Canadian Prime Minister, Mackenzie is agitated by the behavior of the Czechoslovak allies, Great Britain and France. He does not believe that the sacrifice demanded of the Central European nation will bring peace. In protest against the agreement, the country's co-founder, Edvard Beneš, resigns as Czechoslovak president and goes into exile.
The parting of the ways has come. In his magnificent gilded office, President Beneš signs his resignation. For 20 years, he has labored to build up his wartime dream of a free Czechoslovakia. He has lived to see his work almost shattered.
On March 16, 1939, Nazi Germany invades the rest of the territory of the Czech lands. The Associated Press reports from Prague.
Through the snow, the legions of occupation march into Czechoslovakia. This rapid stroke, which has outraged all freedom-loving nations of the world, is carried out with military exactitude. Artillery rolls into Prague and mounts guard on the Hradčin, the castle of King Wenceslas. Presently, from a window of the castle, you may catch a glimpse of Hitler himself contemplating his new conquest.
Edvard Beneš, former Czech president at the Chicago University Roundtable, says the Republic still lives.
The Nazi regime will fall and will be replaced by a free, democratic rule in Germany and in Central Europe as a whole. Czechoslovakia will be again a free and independent state in a new and free Europe.
From the United States, where he currently serves as a professor at the University of Chicago, Edvard Beneš declares to act again as the Czechoslovak president. He establishes the first provisional political center of the Czechoslovak resistance. He calls on Czechoslovak diplomatic missions around the world not to surrender embassies and consulates to Germany. He asks them to continue to serve as Czechoslovak missions under his leadership. Following the instructions of the Czechoslovak president in exile, Edvard Beneš, the Consul General of Czechoslovakia in Montreal, František Pavlásek, resisted the German attempts to take control of his office. He succeeds with the support of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Members of Sokol protected the consulate as well. The organization was founded in Prague in 1862 and quickly spread to Czech communities around the world, including Canada. This is how Sokols celebrated their last international congress in Prague in 1938, when Czechoslovakia was still free. Sokol has promoted physical fitness and intellectual development of its members and the nation. Sokols formed the core of the Czechoslovak army in World War I and are now determined to do the same again 20 years later. Canadian Sokols are no exception. Czech Canadians took part in the creation of Czechoslovakia during World War I. When Professor Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk asked them for help in the campaign for national independence, they responded enthusiastically. They raised funds and enlisted in the Canadian and Czechoslovak armies to fight for freedom in the war. They also helped put the new country on its feet after the conflict ended. Czech Canadians sacrificed a lot for their country, yet only 20 years later, all their work was lost. Seeing the nation's dream of an independent Czechoslovakia crushed, they, however, do not hesitate to come to aid again. Their response has been immediate. Already on April 9, a 4-member Czech-Canadian delegation visits President Beneš in Chicago and pledges him full support. The Czechoslovak National Alliance of Canada was established at a Congress in Toronto on June 25, 1939. The organization now has 91 branches across Canada. It serves as an important advocate of the Czechoslovak cause in Canada and generates substantial financial contributions. Czech Canadians volunteer to fight for freedom in arms. The Canadian government has never accepted the German occupation of the Czech lands. In fact, Canada was the first great power to recognize the Czechoslovak government in exile already on October 12, 1940. The Canadian government provides training grounds to Czechoslovak pilots serving in the Royal Canadian Air Force. It also grants full support to the Czechoslovak Army mission, which arrived in Canada on July 2, 1941, to draft volunteers for the National Armed Forces. Czech Canadians take great pride in the appointment of Karel Bořek, Secretary General of the Czechoslovak National Association of Canada, as the Executive Director of the Canadian Relief Fund. Canadians extend a warm welcome to the son of the late Czechoslovak President Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, Jan Masaryk. The charismatic politician serves as Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czechoslovak government in exile. As he tours North America, Canadians have shown a lot of sympathy for the tragic fate of his nation. The tireless advocate of the Czechoslovak cause delivers 2 or 3 major addresses a day. He also meets with Czechoslovak communities.
Believe me, sir, and you, my friends, it's now or never.
Canada and the Czechoslovak government in London established diplomatic relations on the ambassadorial level. Dr. František Pavlásek, who has served until now as the Czechoslovak Consul General in Montreal, becomes the first Czechoslovak ambassador to Canada. General Georges Vanier, a man with an exceptional reputation and a bright political future, becomes the first Canadian ambassador to the Czechoslovak government. Some say that one day, General Vanier could become Governor General of Canada. Tomáš Bata Jr. is a son of the late founder of the Czechoslovak Bata Shoe Company, Tomáš Bata Sr. In the summer of 1938, when war was on the horizon, he decided to move across the Atlantic to Canada. After the personal intervention of Prime Minister Mackenzie King, Mr. Bata was allowed to bring 100 skilled employees from Czechoslovakia to Canada. Soon a new production plant in Ontario began to produce not only military boots, but also other war equipment. Tomáš Bata Jr. serves not only as the head of the Global Operating Company, but also as a member of the Canadian Reserve Army, an economic advisor to the Czechoslovak government in exile, and a special envoy of the British government in India. The new town of Batawa has become an important center of the Czech war effort in Canada. A number of men have left to fight for Czechoslovak freedom in Europe, while others enlist in the Canadian Reserve Army and continue to use their skills in war production. A so-called unit and a branch of the Czechoslovak National Alliance of Canada were established in Batawa. In 1941, the Bata Company pledged to contribute $150,000 to the Victory Loan. By 1942, the company's employees had raised another $14,200. On July 2nd, 1942, the town hosted the Day of the Allied Nations in the presence of Canadian government ministers Tom Crahar and Colin Gibson.
At the White House in Washington, a guard of honor stands at salute in honor of a distinguished visitor, President Edvard Beneš of Czechoslovakia. Accompanied by Secretary of State Cordell Hull, President Beneš greets President Roosevelt and is introduced to the President's daughter, Mrs. Anna Whittaker. Members of the Cabinet extend a hearty welcome to the visitor. One of the great leaders of pre-war Europe and a fervent defender of democratic traditions, President Beneš works unceasingly to free his nation from the yoke of Nazi Germany. A second distinguished visitor arrives at the White House. On the heels of the Allied victory in Tunisia, Prime Minister Winston Churchill arrives in Washington for his 5th wartime conference with President Roosevelt and a discussion of plans for the next moves against the Axis.
Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King attends the conference between U.S. President Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Churchill. During the conference in Washington, 2 bilateral meetings between the Canadian Prime Minister and Czechoslovak President take place on May 18th and 19th. I was much taken with Dr. Beneš and his prophecy he had made about the trend the war might take. He told me it was not so much a prophecy as a careful study of the whole situation, says Prime Minister Mackenzie King. I gladly accepted the invitation from my dear friend Prime Minister King to visit Canada. I greatly look forward to seeing him soon again, responds Dr. Beneš. Prague is the capital of Czechoslovakia, now occupied by Nazi Germany. However, there is still a free Prague in Canada. It is one of the rural settlements founded by Czech immigrants who came to the country searching for agricultural land. The Canadian Prague was established in 1904 in the middle of the prairies of Alberta. To little surprise, the first settlers came from Prague. However, not from Bohemia, but Oklahoma in the United States. The town grew as more Czechs followed them from the US as well as Europe. Just as during World War I, the people of Prague, Alberta, again take part in the struggle for a free Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovak President in exile, Edvard Beneš, arrives in Canada on an official visit. Even though his country was wiped off the map by Nazi Germany, Dr. Beneš is received with all honors as head of state. Earl of Athlone, Governor General of Canada, Prime Minister Mackenzie King, and many other dignitaries personally welcome him at the Ottawa railway station. Czech Canadians celebrate the special occasion and cordially greet their hero. After meeting with the Governor-General at Government House, President Beneš arrives at the Canadian Parliament. He holds a joint press conference with Prime Minister King. The two statesmen then address both chambers of Parliament. The Munich Agreement has ceased to exist as a factor, either in present or post-war relations. We look forward to the day, which we hope is coming speedily, when the Czechoslovak Republic in its entirety will be restored to its full independence, says Prime Minister Mackenzie King in his introduction. All Czechoslovaks are greatly indebted to Canada for the magnanimity with which he received Czechoslovak citizens who fled from their homeland in the past several years. The sympathy of the Canadian government and people for Czechoslovakia, expressed in words and deeds during the past 4 years, has been an encouragement and inspiration in this darkest period of modern Czechoslovak history, states President Beneš. President Beneš also pays a visit to the Royal Canadian Air Force airfield at Uplands. He is accompanied by Air Marshals Bredner and Bishop. President Beneš meets with Czechoslovak pilots in training with the Royal Canadian Air Force. During his visit in Ottawa, Dr. Beneš was the guest of honor at an official dinner hosted by the Governor-General, Princess Alice, and Prime Minister Mackenzie King at Government House. Several social events also took place at the Czechoslovak Embassy. There was a series of meetings between the Czechoslovak President and the Canadian Prime Minister over the last few days. Now the time has come to say goodbye. It is not only a farewell between two statesmen, but between two friends. Prime Minister Mackenzie King noted in his diary, "Dr. Beneš is an honest man with a sincere soul and deep love for the people. The conversation with him gave me confidence in my own life and work, to see that our purposes and views were so completely one. It was like coming to a long sought-for land of promise, to discover in Dr. Beneš a spirit so wholly kindred to my own." A day after the departure of President Beneš, Prime Minister Mackenzie King reconsiders his position not to run for re-election. "I shall be able to win and to round out a great career, based on principles, beliefs, and actions like those of Beneš." As Allies push for victories in Europe, Czechoslovak Senator Vojta Beneš, brother of Czechoslovak President Edvard Beneš, hopes for an early return to his homeland. He looks back at his years in exile in North America. Just as during World War I, he traveled tirelessly across Canada visiting Czech settlements. Czech Canadians not only invited me to their homes, but also opened the door for me among Canadians. Rest assured that Canada and its people have grown to my heart like nothing else in these sad years, Mr. Beneš says. The second struggle for Czechoslovak independence, led by President Beneš and supported by Czech and Slovak Canadians, is again crowned with success. Canadian and Czech troops helped defeat Nazism. The Czechoslovak Republic is free.
sedmém nebi to dokážete stěží, z milionu přijdou tam jen dva. Být v sedmém nebi a o to právě běží, může jen kdo srdce z lásky dá. Proto již neváhej a mě věř, že je to tak, srdce své hned mi dej a pak vzhůru do oblak. Být v sedmém nebi, to dokážete stěží, z milionu přijdou tam jen dva. A to právě budem ty a já. Sedmém nebi a o to právě běží, může jen kdo srdce z lásky dá. Proto již neváhej a mě věř, že je to tak, srdce své hned mi dej a pak vzhůru do oblak. Být v sedmém nebi, to dokážete stěží, z milionu přijdou tam jen dva. A to právě budem ty a já.